Good evening. This is Pastor Keith Davis along with Ashley Jones coming to you from Zion Hill Baptist Church. We're here to look at our next study in Revelation. If you've got my notes, we're in lesson 42, page 2. We're in Revelation chapter 19. We're going to begin in verse 7. Am I right?
Yes.
We've been really into this evening. We've been here for about an hour before this. You were here longer than that.
Yeah, a little bit.
And going through some of this. And so we're getting toward the end, meaning that we're almost at the end of the tribulation period. And certainly there's a lot after this. The second coming of Christ, the great white throne judgment, the millennial reign, and some things all the way out to eternity. So we're not at the end, but near the end of the tribulation period.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about the marriage supper of the Lamb this evening. And I'm going to say, that's all I've got to say now. Ashley's going to take it away.
No.
But it's very interesting. We've been running, I wouldn't call it rabbits, but we've been asking questions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And running those around. And what questions I couldn't think of, Ashley did and was asking me. But we're going to jump right into this and talk about the marriage supper of the Lamb. Who's involved? How did they get there? We're going to talk about a few things like that.
Yeah. You want me to read first this time?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to give you the hard one later.
Uh-oh.
All right, Revelation 19, verse 7. Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready. All right, now we're going to go into this. That's all I got for right now.
Yeah. And that's a good place to start, just with that. Of course, it involves the Lamb and the bride. Now, you have this laid out, and I read it just a few minutes ago from one of John Walvoord's books on prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
To understand a little bit of this, you have to go back to the traditions of the ancient time when Christ was alive.
Yeah.
To understand what has happened here. How did we get to this point?
Yeah.
And this involves the rapture.
It does. So just to break it down into 4 easy steps,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
I brought my old notes out just to do this. But in the Jewish custom of weddings, I'm going to say back in the day, there was the betrothal.
Right.
And most of the time a betrothal would have been when they were infants or sometimes
a little bit older.
yeah, sometimes. But when you have the betrothal, you're legally married. It's a legal, like a legal document would be today. There would be a payment or a purchase price, like a dowry.
Dowry.
And then those two people are set apart. And then the second part, the bridegroom departs to go to his father's house. He's going to have to prepare a room addition for him and his wife.
We can think of John 14.
Mm-hmm. Where Jesus has gone to prepare a
place for us in the Father's house.
For us, right. And then the bride is supposed to prepare for his imminent return. All right, so then the third part of it is a surprise gathering. He's going to kind of come with his buddies, and they're going to parade through the streets, and they're going to come and get his bride.
Matthew 25, Parable of the Virgins.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
it.
We've been in Matthew 2 different places, and
Yeah.
then in Luke in one place, so I'm not sure what the number is.
Yeah.
And then the fourth part is a 7-day marriage supper.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of those, the betrothal, the payment, the purchase price. You had a good comment on the purchase price right before we come on.
Did I?
Yes. Do you remember what it
Well,
was?
the purchase price was Christ.
Yeah.
He paid the price on the cross to secure our salvation, which made us the bride.
Right.
And, on the betrothal time, you can look back to Joseph and Mary because that was the betrothal time. They were not fully married, but it was legally binding.
Right.
It took a divorce to break that.
Right.
So that gives a little bit of light on that. Yes, and when Christ comes with Christ the bridegroom comes with the other wedding party, that was the rapture as he come to take the bridegroom.
Right.
And that goes right along with what we've been seeing
Right.
in here. And so while we've been looking at the affairs on earth, the tribulation period, something's been going on in heaven. The rapture or taking them to the Father's house has been going on.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about them getting themselves ready.
Right.
I think that was what you read there at the end of that verse.
Do you want to go ahead and read 8 through 10?
Yes.
Okay.
If I don't, I'll jump ahead
Yeah.
where I shouldn't be.
I should have put them all together.
Yeah. No, that's good. And to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, her is the bride, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Then he said to me, this is to John, write, blessed are those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are the true sayings of God. And I fell at his feet to worship him, but he said to me, see that you do not do that. I am your fellow servant and of your brethren who have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So we're going to back up a little bit and look at, it involves a celebration. This comes right after the Alleluias, verse 1, 3, 4, and 6. It involves a great multitude of people. For the marriage of the Lamb is come. It is the end of that whole wedding process.
Yes.
That you read in those 4 steps. So now we got a little bit of difference. I don't know if this is the place to bring it out. As to the wife referred to in the Bible and the bride.
Oh, yeah. I've got some scripture on that coming up.
And we can just hit that a little bit.
And I can jump to it if we need to.
Yeah.
So when we were talking a few weeks ago, I was like, the church is the bride of Christ, and Israel is considered the wife of God according to the Old Testament.
I was going to say, think Old Testament, New Testament.
Right. So my question was a couple weeks ago, and I came to you and I was like, well, if the church is the bride and Israel is the wife, what's their place in this marriage supper of the Lamb? Because that's definitely Jesus. So we've been discussing this back and forth because we really don't ever. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody break down wife of Christ in the way we're talking about right now.
She is now the wife, referred to as the wife here, because the bride was taken to the Father's house. So the wedding has consummated, consummated. And so now it's the wedding feast or marriage supper.
Right.
In the Old Testament, going back just a little bit, the book of Hosea is all about Israel being seen as the wife of God, symbolically. And they commit spiritual adultery.
Right.
That's what the whole book of Hosea is illustrative of. And you've got, there you go, Hosea 1, 2.
Hosea 1, 2.
Look at that. Talk about it and it appears.
I'm trying to keep up. I'm sitting here hitting buttons.
Yeah. I really know what's going on. When the Lord began to speak by Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, go, take yourself a wife of harlotry and children of harlotry, for the land has committed great harlotry by departing from the Lord. So it's an illustration of spiritual adultery on the part of Israel. Here's another illustration of that in the Old Testament. Isaiah 54:5. These are your verses, and I'm reading them.
Hey, go ahead. You're doing good. I'm going to cheer you on over here.
No. For your Maker, capital M, recognize that as God, is your husband. The Lord of hosts is his name. And your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. He is called the God of the whole earth. I want to interject something right here we have not even talked about, but just come to my mind. Because years ago, this was put out in the media as the reason somebody walked away basically from a Christian faith. God is a jealous God.
Oh, yeah.
And we understand that when we see the symbolism of the way his relationship was with Israel and they went off like that, there is a proper jealousy of the husband.
Yes.
And that was misinterpreted years ago, but it had pretty good billing out in secular circles.
It's kind of like when we use jealousy, it's always in a negative way, but there is a healthy form of that where, you know what, we are his.
Yeah.
He is our creator. We belong to him. he loved us so much. What did he do? He sent his son.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a healthy jealousy because we do belong to him. I mean, what did he tell the Israelites when they come into the promised land? Not to have anything to do with all of these other pagan gods
Right.
around them, and they failed over and over. And
Mm-hmm.
listen, God is long suffering,
Yes.
and I don't know where we would be if he was not.
Mm-mm.
But we know eventually Israel is going to be redeemed. You talking about the book of Hosea? They're eventually going to be redeemed. You see that in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have this one in 2 Corinthians
Did
11.
I jump ahead?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
But 2 Corinthians 11:2, this is talking about the bride of Christ. So
Yeah.
that was Israel.
Mm-hmm.
This is talking about the bride of Christ. And it says here, "For I am jealous for you with godly jealousy. For I have betrothed you to one husband that
husband.
I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ."
There again, like you just said, it's a proper righteous jealousy.
Yes.
There's a righteous anger,
Yes.
but when anger is let out from control, it brings bitterness and a lot of other things. But this is righteous. Yeah.
Yes. And another one is Ephesians 5:31 and 32. And these verses are just to show you that Israel is considered the wife of Christ.
Mhm.
I mean, the wife of
By
God in the Old Testament, and the church is the bride of Christ in the New Testament. In 32 here, this is the great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. He's going back to Genesis,
Yeah.
where a man should leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. He's using that as an illustration as Christ and the church.
Ephesians 5 is a comparison that weaves in and out all the way down through that passage that you just had, where it weaves back and forth talking about the earthly husband and wife.
Mhm.
The husband should love the wife like Christ loved the church.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about that physical union and makes it look like the spiritual union back and forth in comparison.
Right.
Now, do we move on to how they made herself ready?
Hey, I've got something I thought about this week.
Okay.
So I was going down the road, and I'm just going to put this out there. They're playing Christmas music
Mm.
on a certain channel around here.
I'm glad I didn't hear it.
So
But it's like,
my son, I know.
it's too early.
Yeah, you got to have December 1st is your date.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'm
let's
more
get past Thanksgiving.
I'm more of a let's start in September
Okay.
kind of person. So my son texts me, and we put it on the radio, and guess what's on?
Joy to the world.
Joy to the World.
Ah, I read
You
your
knew
mind
it.
on that
You
one. Yeah,
did.
yeah.
And also the Handel's Messiah.
People are going to think I'm a prophet, but I'm not. I know because I'm reading her mind. Joy to the World is not about Christmas,
No.
even though it's about the third most popular one I think I've read
Right.
or heard, and but it's about the millennial reign.
Yes. And so that comes on as the Christmas song. So
Yeah.
I was telling my daughter, because we were singing it, and I was like, you know that's not about Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And I
So
was-
Ashley's got to give her the correct theology.
Yeah, I gotta give her the correct one. But then the Handel's Messiah comes on, and he shall reign forever and ever.
Never.
And that's exactly what we're going over
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Sunday nights. And I was like, they sneak those in there as Christmas songs, and they're really
About his second
yeah,
coming.
the second coming songs.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just wanted to share that this week, because if you hear that this week,
It's going to ruin it for him.
no, it's not gonna ruin it. It won't ruin it. But I hope you think about this lesson.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The first coming of Christ, he came as a baby.
Yeah.
The second coming, he comes as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And that's what the song says.
Yeah.
That joy to the world,
The Lord is
Is
come.
come.
Let earth receive
Receive
her
her
king.
king.
Yes.
not her baby.
Right, her
So-
king.
Okay, so we give him a good lesson on that.
Yeah, I just thought that was pretty neat, because it's exactly what we've been
Mhm.
talking about the last few weeks.
I cheated a little bit, but I just heard David Jeremiah preach on that the other day.
Oh, did you? Maybe he
So
heard it on the radio
It was
too.
still fresh in my mind.
Okay, what was your question before this? I know I took us on a rabbit. I'm
No,
sorry.
no. I actually remember it. So-
I'm glad somebody does.
That how does the bride make herself ready?
Ooh.
Because this verse says, Verse 7, let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife, because now it's consummated,
Right.
has made herself ready.
Ready.
We need to look at two passages very quickly. I'm looking at our time, but so the main one would be Ephesians 5. And there's a critical verse there that you and I looked at the phrase that is used there. So in Ephesians 5, husbands, verse 25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Why? That he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word. And here's the key, that he might present her to himself a glorious church. Is it glorious today? It's not.
No.
Not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. How did she make herself ready?
She can't do it.
She can't do it. And right here, it gives us that one phrase, verse 27, that he, Jesus, might present her to himself.
Right.
There's a difference in she presenting herself to him, but that's not what happens.
Right.
He cleans her up and presents her to himself.
Yes.
How does he do that? We talked about the judgment seat of Christ in 1 Corinthians 3, where when we die, we go to be with the Lord, or when we're raptured, and we will be judged not for salvation, we are already saved, but our works will be tried by fire, and whatever's left will be part of that cleansing. Now all the wood, hay, and stubble's gone.
Right. Right.
Okay, I hope that was a very quick run through on that.
Yeah.
I hope it made sense.
I'm with you.
Okay, I hope you're with us. So that's how they're made ready. We're made ready by going through the judgment seat of Christ. We have been tried as by fire. Fire is a cleansing method, just like with gold, it's heated up.
Yeah.
And that's in the Bible as well.
Smelting.
There you go. And so we're cleansed and we come through that as a sanctified bride for the groom. And now we are ready. Okay, I'm out of breath.
No, you're good. I was going to point out that in verse 8, it's talking about her arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright. And you know how we've been contrasting the Antichrist bride, which is the mother of harlots.
Yeah.
We've already went over that in the previous chapters. But do you remember what she was clothed with?
Scarlet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing clean and white. She's with purple and scarlet, precious stones and pearls.
Things that are valuable on earth, but it's no cleansing within.
Right.
Yeah, there's a big contrast there. A couple chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got the harlot with all of her adulteries and fornication, and now we've got the pure bride of Christ, now the wife.
Yes.
So the lamb, the bride of the lamb is ready. If you want to look at 1 Corinthians 15, 51 through 53, we have been changed from corruptible to incorruptible, from mortal to immortality. And that passage talks about that.
And you made a comment before we even come on that is a physical
Physical transformation.
change. Yes.
Right.
We've already went through these verses. These are the ones that I had. And then we're going to pick up in 9.
The wife is called. Verse 9. Blessed are those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. There's no way to, it's always like the word so, for God so loved. And here the word blessed, is like, oh, how we are blessed.
Yeah.
To be called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Now, if you've got my notes, I'm just going to throw this out there, but we're not going to run this every which way, because we've been doing that for a while in our studies. It includes all who have been saved by grace, by faith through God's grace. Old Testament, New Testament, tribulation period. I don't think that they're going to be not invited, but there's going to be a great celebration. And to one degree or the other, the saints of all time, I believe, will be there. And we've talked about the roles and things like that, and we're not going to get back into that here because I'd be confused.
Yeah.
Ashley could go through that, but I
No.
would be confused.
Well, I think the bottom line is we couldn't really say definitively on anything.
That's a good line.
Yeah, but well, you know, we've both studied what's the part of the church, what's the part of Israel, what's the part of this, and we can't really say because we don't have that information to give it. So
No.
it's really not going to do any good. All I know is I'm going to be there. That's the main point. If you are saved, you are going to be there.
We read behind numerous scholars,
Yeah.
and Ashley's exactly right. There's nothing definitive, and I want to put that out there to say that we didn't just think about it for about 3 minutes and come up with that. No, we've racked our brains for a while.
Yeah.
And reading different scholars, and so it's not definitive. The thing that is definitive is if you've been saved, you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's what we need to know.
Yep.
Okay. John was told to write it so it would be recorded for us today for all of mankind. He is told that these are the true sayings of God.
Mm-hmm.
But I have in my notes it was a complete truth, but to an incomplete man. Because John does probably what we would have done. He falls down at the feet of what we believe is this angel. And in response to that, the angel says, "See that you do not do that." Okay? I am your fellow servant. We all serve God. They serve him from heaven. We serve him here.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, don't do that. And here's another one of those two-word sentences throughout the Bible. Worship God. Just worship him. He's the only one worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this being is telling him. Worship God. Boy, we've got people worshiping angels today. They've got them in all kind of ways, and they look for one, and I've got one, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What about the Spirit of God, God himself within us?
You know, I had a question. This might have been like maybe a month ago in my youth class, and it was about other religions.
Yeah.
And I said, do you realize that Christianity is the only religion where God says, I'm going to come live within you if you accept me?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
No
good.
other religion does that.
That's good. And as a matter of fact, he only anointed people in the Old Testament for certain tasks, functions, such as building the temple, tabernacle.
Yeah.
And so only in the New Testament does the Spirit of God actually indwell us. He is actually the sealer of our salvation. And so with that being said, we've talked about wanting to talk to Abraham and Isaac and all this, but will they want to talk to us and say, what was it like to have the Spirit of God indwell you?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, they may be just as curious.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be awful to stand before them and say, I don't know?
Well, that was running through my mind that people would say,
Yeah.
because we don't live it to the fullest.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about mystical stuff that's outside the Bible, but to that which the Spirit of God was given to us to strengthen us, comfort us, teach us, all these things.
Did you use everything God gave you?
Don't go to meddling. Yeah. So John was corrected that it was to worship God. Now this last line is one that I've heard preachers speak about a fair amount. I'll get over here to the right chapter. For the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Prophecy is not about us trying to make up a timetable as far as when he's coming back and all this kind of stuff. We all have our own convictions as to the lateness of the hour, you know. But prophecy is about Jesus. It's about the fulfillment of his plans. It's about the defeat of evil, the salvation of his the saved. It's still all about Jesus. A sinner could know all this better than us, but could still go to hell because they had not come to Jesus.
Right.
Didn't know him.
Right.
So that one line is used a lot that way.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that.
Are you ready to end? I've got something good to end on.
I was going to ask you. What?
I've got something good. All right, so I've already told you, but I'm going to ask anyway. Okay. Why is it called the wedding of the Lamb?
And you asked me that question.
I did, because this is really, really good. This is by David Jeremiah, and this is in his book, Escape the Coming Night. And he says, I mean, there's many titles for Jesus.
Right.
Why does it say the Lamb?
Instead of the bridegroom.
Exactly. And it says, why? Because it was the Lamb you fell in love with. You didn't fall in love with a creator or a king or a lord. Think back and you will recall that those were the very things that drove you from him. But it was different when you came to see him as the Savior who shed his blood for you.
That's good. He's not mentioned as King of Kings until we get to Revelation.
Right.
And Lord of Lords.
But the Lamb, like you
Yeah.
were just reading in those scriptures, is sacrificial. That's the job of the husband
Yes.
that you just read.
Ephesians 5.
Right. So the Lamb is more akin to the husband.
Yeah.
And we, the church, as the bride.
That's good. That's good. You're exactly right. You're
And that's
smart.
all I got.
That's good. No, that's good.
That was David Jeremiah, not Ashley Jones.
But it's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
That's great. I have thought this afternoon that there is so much there. We could start back in Revelation and come again, and there would still be new things.
Are we going to do that?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. Not right now, no. So, because knowledge builds on knowledge.
Yeah.
And the more you know about math, the more math you know. And the same thing with the Word of God. I wish I could open my brain and just pour it all in, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
My pastor that I grew up under said, a call into the ministry is a call to a lifetime of study.
Oh, yes. And we have studied with this.
Yes, yes.
We've actually talked about taking my notes and your notes and combining them together sometime or another.
Right, and coming up with a book
Yeah.
on Revelation.
We'll see.
So,
We'll see. If the Lord
Yeah.
don't come back first.
that's right. That's right. Thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to picking up with you in Revelation 19, verse 11, next week, Lord willing. So join us in prayer. Father, thank you for your word. We learn and we continue to learn. But Father, help us not to learn for knowledge's sake, but to draw us closer to you, to show us the lateness of the hour, to compel us to go out into the highways and the byways and to try to reach people for Christ. Lord, to realize we may run into somebody this week who needs Jesus. If we can't reach them, we can plant seed and we can pray for them. So, Lord, help us to be about your work until that time comes when we go up to meet you in the air. We ask it in Jesus' name.